Hello, students. Welcome back to the class. Today we are going to start with The Monkey's Paw, written by W. W. Jacobs. So, students, it is a one act play, but it has three scenes. Okay, it has three scenes. Now, characters. Characters are Mr. White, Mrs. White, husband and wife. Then Herbert is their son, Sergeant Major Morris, and then Mr. Sampson. So, the general scene of this play is there is an old fashioned cottage and a living room in it, and this cottage is situated at the outskirts of Fulham. See, Fulham is a place in London, in England. Okay, so then there is description of the living room. There is a deep window, and then there three or four steps or stairs lead up to a door. Then there is a dresser which has plates and glasses. On the right corner at the back there is an alcove. On the inside of the street door there is a wire letter box. On the right is a cupboard, then a fireplace. Fireplaces usually we find in the houses of England because the winter over there is always very cold. Weather is cold. Then, um, then there is an old-fashioned piano. There is a yes. There is at this in the center there is a round table. Then, there are comfortable armchairs in each side of the fireplace. There are other chairs as well. On the mantelpiece, mantelpiece is a place, is a table, a kind of slab, which is at above the fireplace. There is a clock, and then there is an old china figure, and the air of comfort pervades the room. Means the family living in this room, that is Mr. White, Mrs. White, and their son Herbert, they are very comfortable. Now the scene one begins. At the rise of the curtain, we see Mrs. White. Now, Mrs. White is a happy old woman. She is seated in the armchair, comfortable armchairs, which we has already discussed. She is sitting uh, in that chair doing some work, and she is happy to see Mr. White and Herbert as they are playing chess, game of chess. Mr. White is is on the losing side, and his hair or his gestures, through his gestures, he look totally confused because he's on the losing side now. Now Herbert, as I told you, is their son. He's a fine young fellow, and he's quite confident with the move he has just made in the game of chess. Okay, so what are the other things? There is a shaded lamp on the table in the room. The door is tightly shut. This is important. The door is tightly shut. Then curtains are drawn off the window and there is wind outside. Now the dialogues start. Mr. White, who has just made a move and he is feeling that he is on the winning side, says, Herbert, my boy, got you, I think. Means I'm going to win the game. Then Herbert says, oh, you are deep in that, aren't you? That don't worry, not take the decision too early. So Mrs. White says, see, the family is really very happy. Son and father are playing game. Mother is, after seeing the mood of her family members, she is happy. Then Herbert, Lord know why he is so overlooked. Mr. White is very excited. I see it. Let me have that back. Now, what is the scene here is that Mr. White has made a wrong move. He has placed his king in an utter danger on the chessboard. And what Herbert says that you are overconfident and that you haven't looked at my pieces on the chessboard. Now, Mr. White says, "Okay, no, let me take it back. I want to undo my last move." Now, Herbert says, "No, rules are rules. You cannot do that." Mr. White is now disgusted. He says, he's like that, "No, I don't hold with these rules. I will play with my rules." See how happy they are. Uh, Now, after this, what is important is that students, Mr. White and Mrs. White, they usually call each other as mother and father of Herbert. Mrs. White, no doubt she is wife of Mr. White, she calls him father. And Mr. White calls his wife as mother. Okay. Now, see, Herbert is going to win, and Mr. White is trying to distract his son's attention so that Mr. White can win the game. He says, "Hark at the wind," means he says, "Listen to the wind." Okay, and then Herbert is not paying attention to that distractions. Herbert says, "I'm listening," and then he says, "Check." Check here is he says that, see, your Herbert is saying that to his father, that see, your king is in danger. Mr. White is still distracting him. Then he says, I think, he says, Sergeant Major Morris, who is a friend of Mr. White, he says, "I hardly think he will come today or tonight," means he doesn't think he would come. Herbert now says, "Mate," means Herbert has won the game. Now, Mr. White, who was totally confused and trying to distract his son, he says that his disgust has outbroke, and now he is, after losing the game, what he is doing, he is speaking angrily, and he is speaking angrily regarding the outside area or the outside infrastructure of their house, like roads and all. That's the worst of living so far out. Your friends can't come for a quiet chat, and you addle your brains over a confounded. See, Mr. White is has outbroke his anger because he has lose the game. So he is um, trying to accuse each and everything. Like now he is speaking of the roads outside. He says the roads are not good, and even a friend of someone who is living here cannot come to meet uh, them. Now Herbert says, "Now, father, Morris will turn up all right." Herbert says, "No, father, it's all right. Mr. Morris or Major Morris will come." Now, Mr. White is still in temper. He says, "Lovers Lane, Fulham, ho, of all the beastly, slushy, out of the way places to live in, pathways bog and the roads torrent." Then he says to Mrs. White, "What's the country council thinking of? That's what I want to know. Because this is the only house in the road, it doesn't matter if nobody can get near it, I suppose." See, he says, now the pathways are bog. Footpaths are bog. Bog means muddy. Okay. Roads are not in a good condition. Then he says, what the country council? Country council is the officer who takes care of the infrastructure. What he is thinking, I want to know why he is not taking care of the roads outside. And then he says, ours is the only house in the locality. That is why they are not paying attention to it. If there were more houses, they could have taken care of the road. Now, Mrs. White knows what is happening, why Mr. White is speaking so angrily. She says, "Never mind, dear, perhaps you will win tomorrow." See how she knows her husband, she knows his feelings. So she says, "I know why are you speaking like this. Don't worry, you will win tomorrow." Now, Mr. White, perhaps I will. Now you see, this was the reason why he was behaving like this. "What do you mean?" Bursts out laughing. Now Mr. White is laughing. See, this is important. There, you always know what is going on inside me. Don't you, mother? Now he says, see how good mutual understanding Mr. and Mrs. White or the family of Whites is having with each other. Then Mrs. White says it should be because after 30 years, they have been married for 30 years, so this should be there. John. John is the name of Mr. White. Now, what happens after that is Mrs. White busies herself. Then Mr. White, no, wait. She goes to dresser and busies herself wiping tumblers. On the way he rises, goes to the fireplace. Okay, yes. Now Mr. White rises and goes to the fireplace and lights a pipe. Means cigarette, we can say. Now Herbert responds to the grumbling of his father that it's not a such bad place, Dad, after all. He says, "Okay, I know that roads are not good, but it is not that bad place." Um, on one of the few old-fashioned houses left near London, none of your stucco villas, home like I call it, and so do you, or you wouldn't had bought it. Now Herbert says that no, it's not that bad place, and then he says, "Why don't you bought another villa? Okay, why don't you bought another villa? Stucco is a material which is used for building walls. It is like cement." Then Mr. White, "Nice job I made of that too, with 200 pounds owning on it." He says, "Okay, we will, but with 200 pounds." Herbert, "Why, I shall work that off in no time, Dad. Matter of 3 years with the rice promised me." Then he says that we can buy it. It is, I will, he says, Herbert says he will earn that money in no time. And then he says it is a matter of just 3 years that we will pay something. Okay. Then Mr. White says, "If you don't get married," he says, "you can work continuously even only if you will not get married." Herbert, "Not me, not that sort." He says, "No, I will not marry now." Mrs. White, as a mother, she wishes that her son should marry. Okay. Then Mrs. White brings bottle of whiskey, glasses, lemons, spoons, buns, and a knife to the table. Herbert says, he says that "I have a lot of time, mother. Sufficient for the day, as its sayings go. Just now, my dynamos don't leave me any time for love making. Jealous they are, I tell you." He says, uh, Herbert says, he says, "I am so ambitious and dedicated towards my career." He is working actually in a factory where dynamos are working. Okay, with dynamos. Dynamos is a machinery, and then he says that "I am so dedicated towards my work that I am in love with my work. My work is my wife, so I cannot get married to a girl. Okay, I already have a wife, which is my work, and that will get jealous." So this is all for today. Thank you.